Welcome back to No Sleep Till here on the Reier on YouTube channel. Travis Reier alongside Evan Reier on the final day of July 2024. Ev, if that doesn't speak to the imminent arrival of another football season, the 1st of August, tomorrow, and we've already got the Hall of Fame game coming up in Canton.
No, it's nuts. I mean, it really kind of it's been a fast first half of the year. I thought I was going to kind of have a struggle trying to get back around the football season, but it's come and gone really quickly. And yeah, I mean, Hall of Fame game. We've got first round of cuts coming up. Like whole lot to discuss and think about over the next month.
Yeah, and go ahead and get our kind of hate on for those Texans, even though it's
Yeah.
a meaningless exhibition game. No Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears in that Hall of Fame game, but boy, it's been an interesting run here in Jacksonville in terms of this training camp for the 2024 Jaguars. And Evan, I know you were able to take in a workout over the weekend in town, able to check out this team. We've seen the last couple of days moving into full pad work. The early narrative, as I talked about yesterday, wasn't very promising as far as the offensive side of the ball. But that has changed here in about the last 2.5 practice. And again, today, I was out there this morning at the Miller Electric Center. More good stuff from the offense. I will say this, though, Ev, the give and take's been nice. It's not like the defense just dominated for 3 or 4 days and now it's been all offense. The last 2.5 practices, if you're a fan, I think, and even this coaching staff are exactly what you've wanted to see from this football team.
No, and I mean it's a good thing it's kind of coming together, especially as pads have gotten started. The workout, the day at training camp this past weekend that I went to, not exactly inspiring in terms of just overall sharpness. But from what you've talked about the past couple of days, and then what other people are saying as well is that yeah, this team is definitely starting to kind of lock in. And you're seeing not just key offensive players like Trevor Lawrence kind of finding it, but also you're seeing some of these newer names, these younger names. Cephas was always kind of a guy that we thought, oh, it's going to be interesting to see how he does, but I mean, right now he's getting rave reviews out of that wide receiver group, which it's not easy to stand out in that group.
Yeah, we'll go around the team is what we're going to do today with Evan. And from an injury perspective, I guess we ought to set the table with that as well. Still no Eric Armstead. You knew that going into camp. That's continued to be the case. Andrew Wingard here in the last 24 to 36 hours, knee injury. Didn't see him during the practice on Wednesday. Adam Gotsis, the defensive lineman, was out there today, but he wasn't in full gear. He was more of an observer of that defensive line. But overall, from an injury perspective, it's been a pretty good situation to this point. Again, not knowing exactly as we record this what the situation's going to be with Wingard. And certainly he's a valuable depth provider. He's a valuable special teamer. He's also a guy that I think intangibly in that locker room, and certainly with the fan base, Evan, he's right there at the top of the list.
No, I mean that's he's the guy who coined the phrase "it was always the Jags."
Always the
I mean
Jags. Yeah.
that dude is absolutely part of the heartbeat of that locker room, and a guy you definitely want around because it's not just it's not just vibes. I mean Dewey pops up with he's popped up with some pretty big plays over the years.
Yeah.
And no, we we're wishing him all the best, obviously, but yeah, it's not exactly clear what's up. Severity wise. In like you said though, it's not what you want to see, but really, I mean, this is as fortunate as you can kind of hope for. You don't really want, you want everything coming out of training camp. If it's going to be bad news, it needs to be, kind of analysis needs to be about, oh, well, this guy's not playing as well as we'd like. So avoiding, major injuries has been, I'd consider it a W for the Jags.
Something else the Jags have avoided that a couple of their uh, division rivals haven't been able to kind of navigate is the banned substance
Yeah.
suspensions. that we've seen
Yeah.
for the Texans with Danico Autry. And then Arden Key, the former Jag, now with the Titans. I mean, a couple of 6 gamers, and those are going to include some games against the Jags. So maybe
No,
some
yeah.
addition by subtraction for the Jags when you think about those losses.
Absolutely. I mean, and those are, they may not be the, cornerstone players of those respective franchises, but both are very important to their respective defenses. So, hey, I mean, you're not going to complain when, that kind of thing happens, but also fingers crossed because there's still enough time. You
Knock
never
on
know.
wood. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I just ensured that a Jag will will
Yeah.
will have a Jag at some point. I just ensured that,
It's going to
buddy.
be someone we don't expect. It'll be Logan Cook. It'll be Logan
Yeah.
Cook suspended for
Well, it's
6 games.
obviously Cam Little. How is a
Yeah,
guy
it's
that size able
which
to kick a football that far?
I heard he was on point again today as well. So saw that online. So great to see.
Oh, he's been good. I thought we'll get to the special teams a little bit too, but I thought yesterday was important because they had just cut Riley Patterson
Right.
on Monday night. And then you go into that Tuesday workout, and now Little's out there. He's the guy. It's
Yeah.
just him.
He's
And his first kick, it was like 55 yards. So it's not like they said, hey, here's a 30-yarder to get loose.
right.
It was straight up from distance, and it had plenty of distance, just missed a little bit outright. But what I really liked was he followed that up with like 5 straight makes. Boom, 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 boom,
You
boom.
love to see it.
And so that was very impressive. But obviously, we want to get into some offense and defense talk. And let's start on the defensive side, Ev, and then we'll
All
work our
right.
way to the offense and culminate things with the quarterback position. But it's just a couple of full pad practices. So when you start thinking about defensive line, even the linebacker positions a little bit, it's tough when they're in shorts and helmets, even though they do some things that are borderline, at least middle of the road contact in team drills and the like. But the last couple of days, you've gotten a better idea. And look, Devon Hamilton, I thought today did some nice things. I mean, he basically just he engulfed one of the running backs. I think it was Lingard on a run play, just right into his
Oof.
midsection. Roy Robertson Harris is looking good out there now in the last couple of days. Still no Armstead, but when you think about this group right now, I thought Mason Smith showed some flash today
I
during
was
the
about to
practice.
ask.
Yeah, I noticed him today, really for the first time this camp. I started thinking about the big dudes, and look, 1 through 5 or so, I think they got a chance to be really good.
Oh yeah, I mean, really, this is the most confident I've felt about one this defensive line as a whole, but also the interior options. Basically since maybe like 2018, 2017, when that group was still around. No, this is exciting, and if Mason Smith is already kind of showing flashes in practice, which that's something that I've seen online, people saying, hey, he looks the part. He's already showing up as like a run stopper, like making his presence felt. If he is able to be a guy, be a contributor out the gate, I mean that could go a really long way in terms of how effective this defensive line is. Not just on the critical kind of third down situations, but downs 1 and 2 as well. So
Yeah, we've seen it says Otami Woe, also out there with Devon Hamilton. So they got other guys they feel good about. I think realistically, Mason Smith, it's a year of growth for him. I'm
for
not
sure.
projecting him to be a dominant guy, maybe not even a next guy in early in the season. But big picture wise, I think you can certainly see what the Jags liked in him, and also his former LSU teammate Jordan Jefferson, that they took there in the middle of the draft. He is sort of that Devon Hamilton type. He can eat up some space, he can eat up some blocks, but he has sort of that short space quickness and the ability to disrupt in his own right. So again, I think it's very promising and probably going to be some tough decisions to make, even when they get into figuring out who they're going to keep down the road.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of dudes that either have experience in that group that could be facing the cut block. Like, I mean, they obviously like Tyler Lacey, and then
Yeah,
Jeremiah Ledbetter comes to mind too. I mean, in terms of filling out that group from not just the interior to the edges, all of that, it's not going to be simple, to say the least. Which really, that's not a it's a good problem to have, and it's one that
Hmm.
the Jags have not had in a couple years. So
Yeah, Lacey looks good heading into year two. Ledbetter's flash too. Absolutely. A lot of nice depth. And then you think about the edges, obviously with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen, those guys are going to be a real problem in 2024. I guess if you have a concern there, it's when you start thinking about depth.
yeah. No, I mean that's where what is Travis Gibson going to provide exactly? Where do they plan on playing him? You also think about Yasir Abdullah. Is he able to provide any form of consistent production off the edge when he gets rotated in there? And that's the depth is still a question mark, but if you've got those two guys sandwiching your defensive line, it's still a good place to be.
And there's also a bit of a wild card in Devin Lloyd in terms of
Yeah,
how Ryan Nielsen might use him. He might Micah Parsons him a little bit, Evan, and kick him out to the edge some. This is a guy and shifting to those inside linebackers with Foye Oluokun, and then Chad Muma has shown some
yeah,
promising signs here. He's been the guy in there with Lloyd and Foye in the base defense, and then we've seen a good bit of Lloyd and Muma in there together when Foyer's not there at the mic. So some interchangeability. Foye is a middle linebacker. That's what he
yeah.
is. He's a middle linebacker. He's not off the ball. You're not going to kick him to the edge. But there is some versatility with a couple of those guys you drafted a few years back.
Well, I mean, a big part of both, as we know with Lloyd, especially is his athleticism, but Muma is also a pretty versatile athlete in that sense. I mean, so find ways for them to contribute. I totally understand that Muma's in on the base defense, but you're probably going to be a nickel more often than not. That's just modern NFL. Okay, well, let's find a way that Muma can get on the field and at least try and contribute, because really this is a huge year for him. I mean, it's a huge year for some of those third year guys. If it's not now, it's probably not going to happen in Jacksonville. So I'm definitely all about it. Having especially fresh ideas on for those defensive schemes.
Yeah, I think Muma is the Sam in the base, and then he would probably right now be the third inside linebacker also.
Yeah,
But Ventrell Miller is a guy that you would like to see a good bit from. And there was a little bit of a scare on Tuesday, had a little bit of a hamstring issue, and you're thinking, here we go again with poor Ventrell Miller and
yeah.
the injury bug. And because of that, it was really good to see him back on the practice field earlier today.
No, for sure. I mean, that's again, injury woes have been, those are always tough to swallow. But he's a guy that, I mean, most Jags fans honestly probably don't even know that much about him or what he can provide, because we just haven't been able to see him play. So, no, it's good that seems like that was a pretty minor issue with the hamstring, and that, here in the coming weeks, we can kind of finally see him suit up, in the preseason.
Yeah, may have just been a cramp issue or something like that, but he was out there running around looking pretty good on Wednesday. Let's talk about the back end. Let's talk about the secondary. For much of the 7 days, when it's been truly the first group out there, it has gone Ronald Darby at a corner. It has gone Tyson Campbell at a corner, Darnell Savage at slot corner, and then Andre Cisco, and then some mix there at that other safety position. Wingard was actually out there a good bit to open a lot of these team drills, like 11 on 11 on or a 7 on 7. But Antonio Johnson would rep in quite quickly at safety, and now with Wingard out, it looks like Antonio's in the kind of catbird seat with Cisco back there.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fine. I'm definitely cool with that. I've heard that Johnson has kind of had a couple, let's just say like rookie moments. I mean, he's not a rookie, right? But just kind of has gotten beat.
Youthful. Yeah.
But at the same time, that's all right. I mean, like you said, you want it to be a give and take. Somebody, not everyone can make the play at the same time. So no, I still like Antonio Johnson a lot. Like just in general, I'm definitely more patient with him than I am with like say some of the more veteran options in that secondary. But speaking of veteran options, I wanted to get your take on kind of hopping off the safety to corner. I've seen a lot of good things about Ronald Darby. Have you noticed specifically that he
Yeah.
just looks the part?
He's been really good. He's been consistent. He's been what you would hope he would be as a veteran checking in there. Yeah. I mean, look, one-on-one drills, a lot of these situations, these poor DBs are going to get beat. Sometimes they
Yeah,
get cooked, but
yeah,
I haven't seen him really get cooked. I've seen him come up on the short end, but still be in a really good spot coverage wise. So he's competed. He's been right there. I think he's been a real positive. He's been a staple right now. I mean, they've mixed in at some other spots, but when I think about the guys of the five in that nickel, I mean, it's pretty much been Savage, it's been Tyson, it's been Darby, and it's been Cisco. It's really just been that one safety spot. But I'll say this too: corner depth has impressed me. A guy like Christian Braswell, he's working inside at that slot corner, and you're not seeing Antonio Johnson much early in camp in there, kind of like what we expected we would. You're like,
yeah,
wow. But reason why is they got a guy like Christian Braswell's playing his butt off in a lot of these practices. I don't know what his sustainability is, big picture wise, but Monteric Brown's still around.
yeah.
Um, Amani Oru Warrior used to be previously of the Detroit Lions practice squad guy for the Jags last year. DeAndre Prince, the rookie that they drafted out of Ole Miss. I've seen good stuff from all those guys.
And I mean, we haven't even named Jarian Jones. I mean, he's
Jarian's been
yeah.
great too.
I mean, it's no, the secondary is having the training camp that you really wanted to see. I think in weeks past and episodes past, we've kind of talked about where maybe there could be concerns or uncertainty. The secondary definitely came to mind, despite there being talent and experience in there. But instead, it seems like really they've I mean, shined, exactly at the level you want to see. And like you said, yeah, they've got a little bit of a burden of riches when you've got these backup options, these younger guys kind of showing up. I mean, and I mean, we haven't, there's also veterans in the mix over there too that we haven't mentioned, like Terrell Edmonds, Trey Flowers. I mean, so
Well, and
it's
the safeties step up if Wingard's out, right? If you're
yeah,
Terrell Edmonds, Daniel Thomas,
Daniel
I mean,
Thomas.
the opportunity becomes greater for you. If unfortunately for Wingard, it's an extended period. So yeah, it's really a good look back there on the back end. I'll say this about Jarian. I don't know if he's going to start game one. I won't be surprised if he does because Savage and Darby, one of those spots is where you would think if Jarian's
If
going
they
to be
fit
a
him in,
starter,
yeah,
but those guys better be good. They better play at a high level week in and week out because the rookie's going to be sitting right there waiting
waiting
for
for it.
that opportunity. So, yeah, good stuff on the defensive side of the ball. And with that, Evan, let's shift over to the offense. Let's go up front. Let's talk about the bigs in terms of the first five. No surprises there. Anton Harrison, Brandon Scherf, Mitch Morse, Ezra Cleveland, and Cam Robinson. I guess we were anticipating maybe more of a competition between, say, Cam and Walker Little, but to my eye anyway, and I know there's individual periods and other parts of practice where, and they've worked Little in there some, but it's not this, to this point anyway, it hasn't been this fist fight for the left tackle spot. Maybe it'll become that.
Yeah, I wonder, with especially with something like offensive line, preseason starting to get some of those kinds of reps in. I feel like that tells you a little bit more than what you can kind of see even with pads on at training camp. Again, I haven't really, seen any clips of the OL at work. I will say that someone mentioned, I think yesterday, that Walker Little gave one of the UDFAs a very much a welcome to the NFL,
Yeah.
welcome to pads moment on it, like a screen or something. He just
It
laid a
was
dude
it was
out.
Prince that he got
Oh yeah,
and
Yeah,
he planted him.
he
It
popped
was
him.
very well done. Yeah, he got him.
Which,
He got him.
hey, that's what you want to see.
Yeah.
If nothing else, you at least want some tenacity. If Walker Little's kind of just planted as the backup, but again, while I would, I think we all still think Walker Little could actualize, become kind of that first round billing talent that we've seen in the past. Right now, if the Jags feel confident in Cam, I think that's a good thing, and I'm never going to complain about having a guy like Little as your backup, or your kind of utility guy back there.
Yeah, you still got Little on a rookie deal.
Yeah,
So, it's a pretty good situation
affordable. It's yeah, it makes
if he's your
sense.
third tackle. Absolutely. And I think even on the interior, there's some things to like about the depth there. Now, Cooper Hodges has been out. He's
Yeah,
been hurt. So he's been a little bit of a notable absence there, but Shatley's been around forever. Fortner is a 2-year
still in the mix.
starter.
Yeah,
Um, so you're going to be solid, I think, in terms of your seventh, eighth type of guy when you head into the regular season. Tight end position, Evan Ingram and a bunch of guys. That's what it's
yeah,
kind of been. I'll say this earlier this week, we saw more from Brenton Strange, both as a blocker and a receiver.
right.
Luke Farrell today caught a nice deep ball and some one on one work. So there's been some positives, but I mean, we know what it is. It's Evan Ingram. And then they still want to go to a lot of 12 personnel with two tight ends on the field. So Farrell, Strange, these guys have got to start to really live up to it, as we've talked about here before. I think those guys can be serviceable. Brenton Strange to this point isn't the receiving option I kind of hoped he would be. He can
Yeah,
manage it, but it doesn't seem to be a comfortable thing for him like I thought it might be. And, Farrell's just, he's kind of that traditional tight end. And you need that kind of guy because when you look at Evan Ingram, he looks, Gabe Davis almost looks more like a tight end than Evan Ingram when you see
yeah.
those guys on the practice field together. But yeah, Evan to me, just the connection he has with Trevor too, it just looks like another Pro Bowl type of season for Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to get those targets. I mean, he's just it's like a security blanket. It's like that is what's great about him and Christian Kirk. Both they both kind of provide that, and ideally with Davis and Brian Thomas coming in, you're adding dynamicism, explosiveness to go with those kind of sure-handed guys. No, but when I was at practice on Saturday, saw Ingram make pretty much caught every single thing thrown his way on a day in which honestly the quarterbacks were struggling to link up with the receivers, and everything else that I've seen over the past week has just said that Ingram is the guy. On Saturday, I was intently watching Brenton Strange multiple times just to see something. I want to see something from him that makes me think that okay, he can take a step forward. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, how or what the Jaguars can do to really get him to kind of show up as a like I don't know, a lethal offensive weapon. I like the idea that hey, we've got to have great blockers and stuff, but Luke Farrell already does that. So definitely still curious about what Brenton Strain's going to provide this season. And yeah, I will continue to monitor what happens with training camp because, like I said, I'm looking for anything from that dude.
Yeah, he did a nice job on a quick screen down deep in the red zone a couple days ago. Got a nice block on Chad Muma. So that was good to see. And I think he's been better as a receiver. But again, you said though you used the word dynamicism.
Dynamicism.
Okay, that's way out of my league, but I get it. I like the word, and I think it's very apt, and it's pretty much limited to Evan. So you need to keep Evan healthy because he's obviously going to be a big part of what they want to do, especially when they throw the football. The wide receiver position, some angst as it relates to Brian Thomas Jr. early in camp. Had a couple of opportunities in some one-on-one situations, wasn't able to finish plays, but we've seen more of the kind of guy you want to see again here in the last few practices. Not so much today. Today had the feeling of, okay, we're going to really take a look at some guys that are in the mix for that last spot or two in the wide receiver rotation, because it was a lot of Elijah Cooks. There was still a lot of Seth Williams. Gosh, even guys like Skates, Joseph Skates, Cephas. Those were the guys that it seemed like were featured more today. It was some Gabe Davis too. But before today, the previous two practices and a half, Brian Thomas Jr. showing some real promise. Again, I don't think he's a 70 plus reception guy this season, but I felt a lot better in terms of his uh, his workload, how you're going to be able to use him. Because after about four practices, you're thinking, is this just going to be a guy they run on go routes and tries
Yeah.
to, open the field up? Or is he going to be able to give them something on third down or in the red zone? And what we've seen really on Monday and Tuesday was a guy that could do some of those things as well.
No, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it of, kind of slowly, getting a guy enveloped in all the different ways that he's going to contribute. At the end of the day, those go routes, those deeper shots. Like, I mean, that is where really we want him to find his bread and butter. So I totally get that. Again, when I was there on Saturday, I didn't necessarily. I mean, he didn't really get to link up at all. They barely threw to him, which I thought was interesting. But it sounds like he's definitely been more involved over the past couple days. And then, yeah, you mentioned Elijah Cooks. I've been seeing a lot of good stuff there. Seth
Nice
Williams
practice
says,
today. Yeah.
yeah, I heard he was very, very solid today. And then a name that popped up at least on Saturday, for me was Duvernay. It seems really exciting. Devin Duvernay definitely feels like the kind of gadget player, just a different a different dimension, at receiver for the Jags.
Yeah, and kind of falls into that category of a Christian Kirk, who you already know what you've got with him working inside. But that gets interesting with Duvernay and Parker Washington. Kind of the same sort of dudes.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe Duvernay isn't even a little more explosive than Parker Washington is. But Parker Washington's had a nice camp too. And those are also two guys that you're looking at for punt return.
Yeah, no, I mean they've got a serious conundrum at the wide receiver spot because initially we kind of said like, well, Kirk, Davis, Thomas, that's a nice top three, but you're kind of wondering if it's top heavy. How good are those fourth and fifth guys going to really be? Well, if Duvernay is able to provide as if either of Duvernay or Washington are able to provide as you said, special teams returner, kind of a Christian Kirk like, but also potentially you can do some weird stuff, some trickery, some chicanery with them. It's nice to have. However, do you want two of that same guy? I don't think you really do. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Jags kind of commit to having both those guys, or if they kind of try to diversify their loadout of receivers.
Yeah, I'd love for the Jags to keep Parker and Duvernay, but then you've got those two guys plus Christian Kirk,
Yeah,
who are
it's a lot of
kind
the
of
same thing.
and that's where a guy like Cephas has an opportunity, is he can bridge a couple of different gaps.
Yeah.
And this is a point in the preseason where you really want to show that you can handle multiple positions in that wide receiver rotation. The more you can do, the longer you're probably going to get this hang around in a situation like that. And again, as we talked about, seems like they've been really repping in those guys in those spots to kind of see who those final couple of receivers are going to be. And Cooks I thought was good today. I thought Seth Williams was good in previous days. There's some guys like uh, Tim Jones, probably Denzel Mims, a little bit on the outside looking in right now. Austin Trammell, those kind of guys. It's going to be tough, but it's been really legitimate, good competition in the sort of mid to lower tiers of that rotation. That's exactly what you want. Let's talk running backs, Ev. Obviously at the top, no question who that guy is, and Travis Etienne Jr. But from a depth perspective, big preseason for Tank Bigsby. And according to what I can see anyway, I think he started to take that next step. I thought today in full pad work might have been some of his best work. You know, a guy is running with authority and decisiveness when he's kind of in the middle of the first skirmish that we've had of
Yeah.
training camp, and that was Tank on Wednesday. And you know what? After the skirmish, he came right back and kept running just as hard. It was like he was getting tried a little bit, and his
Yeah.
answer was, well, if you didn't like that, you're really not going to like this.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, he kind of just had one of those kind of NFL starts to his career that just it's almost like the nightmare instead of the dream coming true, where anything that he seemed to touch was kind of
Drop the
going
live
wrong.
ball. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, but at the end of the day, this is a brand new season. I'm absolutely willing to forget that. I mean, we've forgotten Trevor's rookie season. I mean, granted, that was a Urban Meyer thing more than it was a Trevor thing, but uh, I think I think he looked good when I was there on Saturday. And then, yeah, I mean, he is consistently, when I'm looking at Twitter, when I'm looking at updates, reading stuff from around the space of, who's standing out, who's looking good. Tank is consistently coming up. ETN's being, ETN looks the part too, but just, knowing that the Jags potentially have a, more physical, kind of different presence, but also a guy that's still extremely athletic, young, ought to be able to also still make some plays. That's huge. That would be a huge come up if Tank Bigsby kind of becomes a proper number two back.
Yeah, again, running with strength and decisiveness earlier today. And also, I like what we've seen from the backs in the passing game. Has been a concerted effort, even in the red zone, to get them the football. When you think of Travis Etienne and some of the matchups you can get with him, it's not just in full field situations. You get down there in the goal line and you go with some condensed formations, get everybody inside, and then get him on the edge and just swing it to him. That can be very difficult to deal with. Bigsby has done some nice things as a receiver too, not just again in the check down game with these guys. These guys can get vertical. If you get them in matchups, especially with linebackers, good luck running with
Yeah,
either
they're going
one
to
of
win.
them. And in terms of depth, I mean, it pretty much looks like Dearness Johnson by default right now.
Yeah.
Keelan Robinson has been out. You've got Lingard, you got Jalen Jackson. But if there's a defined third back right now, I'd say it's certainly Dearness.
Yeah, no, it definitely seemed like it on Saturday when I was there. And I mean, you do need a veteran presence somewhere in that group. I mean, I know ETN is no, he's is in his third year, but having a guy like that is important. He was useful last year. I mean, he's just proven his worth to the Jags. So definitely down to keep Darius around.
Let's talk quarterbacks. Save the best for last, right?
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, a little bit of a rocky start in the first 3 or 4 practices. I thought about midway through Monday's practice, that's when it really started to click for him and the offense. Um, he is a guy that it seems like it takes him a little bit in some of these practices to get it going. He doesn't always shine as much in what is typically the easiest period if you're a quarterback. One-on-ones, you're going to have a lot of great opportunities with all that field to work with, and you're just dealing with one defender. But the good news is, again, the last 2+ practices when they've gone 7-on-7 or they've gone 11-on-11, that's when he has really, really started to show why you dropped the sort of cash that you dropped on him, including a couple of throws I thought yesterday in red zone work where I love Mac Jones and I've been a CJ Beathard fan in the past. But if you're wondering where the money differential kind of comes in terms of skill set, Trevor had a couple of those throws, especially yesterday, that spoke to that.
No, it sounds like in general yesterday was just extremely sharp. I think I saw something that said like he basically had one incompletion in that 11-on-11 teams portion. That's what we wanted to see after kind of a, like you said, it does seem like it takes him a little bit to get into it, not just day by day, but in general. I mean, it's not like, really he was flashing much at all in the first few practices of training camp. And then the past, kind of 2 days or so, it seems like he's just been on. And, maybe that's because Mac Jones has kind of been showing up. Maybe Mac Jones kind of rolling up. He's hitting touchdown celebrations. He's getting the crowd amped up. Maybe Trevor saw that and it's like, okay, I've got a serious competitor here. No disrespect to CJ Beathard, we love CJ, but I think that's important to have that energy.
Speaking of Mac Jones, there he is. Mac being Mac right here with a footy touch and a
Toe
two
tap,
tap with his toes and gets in bounds. That's earlier today from Jaguars practice on the old Twitter/X feed for yours truly. You just never know. I think it's been good for them, and not just in terms of their quarterback room. This team in general needs some juice and maybe some levity. And Mac Jones brings that each and every practice. Tuesday he scores on a 5 yard scramble. Well, I guess he would have scored. Who knows? Maybe he gets tackled in a true game like situation. And then he throws the ball up in the bleachers. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's great, man. I know some people, though, will look at it and think, God, this guy's kind of a clown. But let me say this about Mac Jones, too. And I agree with you. I think his presence has been good for Trevor because more so than CJ Beathard, this guy is closer, I think, to Trevor Lawrence in terms of the things he can do in the way he can push Trevor as far as a competition and understanding there is no competition. It's Trevor's job.
yeah.
We all get that. But Matt can make you better. He is capable of doing that. It's not just all laughs and craziness. When he has gotten his opportunity the last three practices, Mac Jones has looked very much like an NFL starter.
No, for sure. I mean, this is a former Pro Bowler, right? I mean, this is a
Yeah.
guy that, has shown that he can succeed. Last year, makes that hard to remember sometimes because it was rough. But I mean, that was just in general a very rough situation in New England. I think, just it's a match made in heaven. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. I mean, it's the hometown kid. It's a guy that, like you said, is closer to Trevor, can actually, if Mac Jones has to come in and start a game or two, that's not ideal at all. But I feel better about about my chances than I do with CJ. So no, everything is kind of being, all the boxes are being checked by Mac right now, and it's nice to see. I mean, sometimes something like this can kind of go sour. Instead, it seems like he's just having a good time,
Yeah,
enjoying being in Jacksonville. So.
you watch Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator, and the other quarterbacks during practice, and Mac's doing Mac, and they're loving it too. I mean, they're
Yeah,
laughing, and it's. But at the end of the day, as we heard from Press Taylor earlier today, Mac Jones loves football.
yeah,
Mac Jones is a football guy. And I think Press Taylor loves that too because every conversation he has with Mac is football. He always wants to talk football, learn more, get better. And then, yeah, he does bring some of that legit Duval that he has in him to the practice field. But I think it's been a good thing for that room and that team as a whole. CJ Beathard, I think if there's a way that they could go into the season with all three of these guys, that would be a nice situation. I think CJ Beathard is still capable of being a backup at a lot of places around the league. But if it's an either or, as you talked about, I think last season kind of would tell us that this is Mac Jones. It's going to be the guy in that number two spot because I don't know why you bring in Mac Jones if you felt like what you encountered a year ago with Trevor and his injuries uh, was good enough. And I understand. I think CJ had some health issues of his own once he finally got in there. Uh, but absolutely, if you've got a guy that could be a starter again in the league at some point, it's Mac Jones. And with that, I would think he's going to be that guy.
for sure. No, we love CJ. We're very pro CJ Beathard
Mm-hmm.
podcast. But yeah, at the same time, it's just something you can just see. And it's like I said earlier, it's a like a burden of riches. When you have this kind of situation where you're like, man, it feels like we're wasting resources because we have to cut somebody or whatever. But if you want to be a competitive football team, if you want to be a team that's perennial, year after year competing, going to the playoffs, consider yourself a Super Bowl contender. You've got to have this kind of situation. That's the only way you do it. I mean, you go look at the 49ers, you go look at the Chiefs. They're cutting guys that other teams want. I mean, that's what it means to have a really good roster. So as we get, closer and closer to those first cuts, it'll be interesting to see how the Jags navigate it.
There are second chances for most folks in life, just like there are second chances for a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League. Look at Geno Smith is
Oh
one
yeah.
example of that. And I totally expect Mac to be a starter in the league in 2025, barring injury. That injury perhaps could lead to that even this season. Hopefully it doesn't, but
It's
it's a
possible.
lot of fun to watch that guy out there. And again, he's not just a loosey goosey, you know, clownish type of guy. He can play quarterback at a high level. Special teams, Evan. We talked about Cam Little, super kicker, earlier. Has just an absolute howitzer on his right hip, and
Yep.
Logan Cook back punting the football. We saw a punting period earlier today at practice. I thought Logan was just okay last year. I didn't think it was his best year by any means. But he's looked very good in this preseason. And then, as we talked about earlier, the return options that you have with Duvernay, who can do kickoffs too. Parker Washington. They've had Austin Trammell back there deep on punts. This new kickoff rule, right, is going to be really fascinating. We saw the Jags work on a little bit of that in the last few practices. It's going to be totally different in terms of how you kick it, cover it, return it. What area of that are you kind of focused in on and honed in on right now?
With Cam Little, it's just been fun to just see him make long field goals. That's going to be really exciting when he comes out for that first like 61 yarder because he's got it. Um, I hadn't really paid attention much to Logan Cook. Like I said, I brought up Duvernay earlier. I'm a big fan of his. The more and
Yeah.
more I see him, the more I've like looked back at some of his time with the Ravens and things like that, the more I'm about it. And I think that his kind of shiftiness should translate well to kickoffs. I think if he ends up having all of the return duties, I really do think that he can be efficient and effective, not just on punt returns but also on the new kickoffs. So really, that's where I've been kind of zeroed in on.
Yeah. I think they've got some playmakers, even with Jamal Agnew moving on. You
Oh
come
yeah.
back with Duvernay and you have Parker Washington. I think you're going to be just fine when it comes to the return game. You're always going to wonder about a 20-year-old kicker.
Yeah.
As good as he's looked in camp, uh, it's always kind of this yeah, but situation with those guys. He looks good. Yeah, he looks good in camp, but wait till you go to Miami and perhaps the game is on the line.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of just ability, it totally made sense that if the Jags were going to take a kicker in the sixth round, they took the one they took. Ev, it's been a lot of fun having
Oh
you
yeah.
back here on the show. And boy, we're going to have plenty to talk about coming up here soon. Getting into preseason action. The Kansas City Chiefs coming to Duval in about, just 10 days or so. So we'll
It's
have that.
crazy.
And next thing you know, we'll be previewing the Jags and the Dolphins week 1 down in South Florida. Ev, as always, man, thanks for doing it.
Of course. Appreciate all y'all listening. And for the record, I'm a big fan of the white helmets. We didn't get to talk about
Yes,
that. So
I was about to hit you with the white helmet question.
I'm a fan. The only thing that I don't like about it is the NFL's rules state that if you wear that, that counts as one of your three like allocated alternate uniform games. So it just kind of I don't know. It's a to just change the helmet and then lose like a a throwback jersey game or whatever. It's kind of
Yeah,
a weird trade off, but I still think it looks really good. I think they're also going to wear black with the white helmet. I really wish they would just go all white. All white would look so
ice it
good.
up. Yeah.
But hey, I mean, I'll let them cook. I'll let them cook. They've been doing good with the unveiling of the helmet, and the throwback jerseys. So I'll let them do their thing.
I think even that has something to do with NFL rules about
Yeah.
color coordination, and it's crazy, man. More rules than the
Yeah,
NCAA.
yeah, I know.
Saying something.
But yeah,
I'm with you.
there's my 2 cents on it.
Give me all white. Ice it
Yeah,
up. I think that would be the best look with those white helmets. So, for Evan Reier, I'm Travis Reier, and we thank you as always tuning in here to No Sleep Till. If you haven't subscribed to Reier on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on those notifications. If you don't mind hitting us with a thumbs up, with a like, that would help us out as well. For Ev, I'm Trav, and until next time, so long, everybody.